If you're looking to get into indie comics for the first time, there's a good chance you're probably feeling a bit lost. With so many writers and so many different companies that you've probably never heard of before, it can probably feel a little bit overwhelming and you may be reluctant to give indie comic books a try. So, to help with this issue, I've decided to start this series where I take a look at big, well-known mainstream comic book writers and show off some of their indie comics as a transition point from mainstream comic books into indie comics. And after running multiple polls on multiple different platforms, the next writer that you guys wanted to see showcased was Donny Cates. And it's pretty easy to see why. With huge hit series like Absolute Carnage, King in Black, and his recent Thor and Venom runs, Donny Cates has become a well-known and extremely popular writer over the last few years. Now, he has kind of been out of the game for a little bit, but there's a reason for that. He was actually in a severe car accident recently, which caused partial amnesia, and he lost the prior 6 months of his memory. And he's been recovering from that accident for the better part of the last 2 years. And with that, a lot of his projects have either been put on hold or taken over by other writers until he can fully recover. So with all that said, I'm sure I speak for all of his fan base when I say we wish him a speedy recovery. But let's take a look at a few of the indie comics that Donny Cates has put out that I really think you should check out. And first on the list is Babyteeth. Written by Donny Cates with artwork from Gary Brown, the story follows 16-year-old Sadie Ritter, a teen mother-to-be who is 9 months pregnant and is completely terrified. Luckily for Sadie, her family is helpful, loving, and supportive through the entire process, so at least she is not completely on her own for this new journey of motherhood. The only big problem, it turns out, is that her baby is none other than the actual Antichrist, who is destined to bring about chaos and destruction to humankind. And once Sadie gives birth to her son Clark, things begin to go downhill. Clark is fussy and crying seemingly 24 hours a day. He won't latch or drink from a bottle, and Sadie's sleep schedule has been completely destroyed. You would think all of this would be hard enough on a young first-time mom, but when secret societies and assassins begin to come after her baby for being the Antichrist, the real struggle begins. If you're a fan of the supernatural and secret societies, then I can highly recommend Babyteeth as an addition to your reading list. Next up is a series near and dear to my heart personally, and that's Crossover. Again, written by Donny Cates, this time with artwork from Jeff Shaw. Imagine this: you're sitting in your room reading comic books, indulging in stories of good and evil, heroes and villains, or fantastical adventures through mystic lands. It's great entertainment, but none of it's real, right? Well, in Crossover, it's all real. The stories and images in the comics are actually happening in a different dimension. But one day, humankind finds this out the hard way, when the two worlds collide in what they call the event. The day that the heroes and villains of the comic world crossed over into the real world, and it nearly destroyed everything. The battles that only took place on the page spilled into the streets, and countless lost their lives. The military was forced to step in and place a dome over the event center. Now, any comic book character, or fake as they're commonly called, is either arrested or killed by the government. Comic books and shops are banned in most places, and church groups have popped up with slogans like "Pray the capes away" and "God hates masks." In one of the last remaining comic book stores, our main character Ellie still cosplays on her way to work. The shop owner Otto is a purist. When it comes to buying and selling comic books, he'll only buy and sell books that the government tried to burn or outlaw after the event, and he's just arguing with customers. It's a typical day at the shop with protests out front and customers inside. But when a lost comic character, a little girl named Ava, is revealed at the shop, everything changes. This is a story about adventure, acceptance, and hope that covers some heavy social topics and themes. But this is literally the first series I bring up when someone asks for an indie comic book to read for the first time, as it contains topics and even some characters that are familiar while giving you something much different than your typical superhero story. The last one I'm going to go over, but certainly not least, God Country. Donny was able to assemble an entire team of comic book heavy hitters for God Country. Long ago in West Texas, Emmett Quinlan was dying of Alzheimer's. His son Roy struggled with being a father to his own child while at the same time watching his own father wither away and turn spiteful and angry. And to top it all off, a huge tornado is on a path to destroy their home. This was no ordinary storm, however, as it did not originate in this world, and it didn't come to this world alone. After his home is destroyed, Emmett suddenly stood holding an indestructible 12-foot long talking sword named Valofax. And as long as Emmett holds the sword, He's healed. His Alzheimer's is gone, and his memory's fully intact. The problem is that this sword does not truly belong to Emmett, and the real owners want it back, and they are prepared to do anything in order to achieve that goal. This is epic indie comic book storytelling at its finest, solidifying this series about family, aging, and loss as a must-read for any comic book fan looking for something new or looking for a story to help transition from mainstream comic books into the world of indie comics. Now, if you're a fan of Jonathan Hickman, who's currently writing the new Ultimate Spider-Man run, you can check out a video showcasing some of his indie comics right here.